Hello and welcome to episode 78 of the Movies in a Podshell podcast, the podcast where we take a theme and pick two films to fit that theme. But not this week. We are halfway through the year, so as is now our tradition, we're going to give you our top 5 favourite films so far. Not best, just favourites. So when John inevitably picks Rebel Moon Part 2, you can rest assured it's just his favourites, and I certainly don't endorse it, and nor would our guest. Rather than having 5 blockbusters from John and 5 nostalgia bait films from me, we do have a returning special guest, a fan favourite, if you will, to give us some additional well-needed perspective. Some call her the Chief. Well, I do. Probably the only one. Some people probably have other nicknames that I'm not aware of, but most people just call her Jane. So I'm very happy to have Jane Crowther, Editor-in-Chief of Hollywood Authentic, back on the pod. How you doing, Jane?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back. I feel, and also please, everybody call me Chief. I like that. I think that should be the way forward.
Yeah, I bet you've been called worse. I certainly have.
Yeah, Jane the Pain is the cracker from school.
Jane the Pain.
Very imaginative.
Yeah, I mean, was that?
Trauma.
Yeah, my second name was Wit, and as you can imagine, that rhymes with all sorts of stuff. So and having ginger hair as well, I was just basically a walk-in bully victim. So it's not ideal, really. Yeah. How are you, John?
I'm good. Yeah.
Oh, you've managed to do your light. You've actually sorted out your lighting for once in your life after I had a little moan.
You had a moan. Yeah, the tube lights out there.
Yeah,
the room's a mess. But that's okay.
It's
fine.
That's for Jane, isn't it? You wouldn't have done that for me. That's
yeah,
for
Jane. made special effort. You know,
it's beautifully
as we've got
purple.
a guest on, got to be done. Thanks. It can do any color, and it looks like a lightsaber, so it is good fun.
See, purple is a good color, right? Because it's supposed to like premium. Well, yeah, obviously, but like purple is associated with premium, isn't it? That's why our logo is blue and pink. Jane, so it's been a while. I've not seen you.
I didn't know where we
you
were
last on the
going
pod.
with that.
I don't really know where
do.
everyone's going. Yeah, it's been probably nearly. Well, so John's baby's a year old now, so I reckon it was about a year ago you were on the pod.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing? Tell us about it.
Well, I've changed jobs. I was the editor-in-chief of Total Film then, and now I'm the editor-in-chief of Hollywood Authentic, which you said at the top there, which is a magazine put out by the photographer Greg Williams, and it's a mag that's basically in the style of Life magazine and back in the heyday. Lots of big, beautiful photographs of people, really amazing access in a large format magazine, and it's very glossy and very beautiful. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. It's pretty cool. And I'm also doing some other stuff that's like my stuff, which is I'm writing a book about cinemas, which will be out next year, and I'm doing draft 4 of my novel, which will also be out next year. So kind of busy, but that's good. Like to keep busy.
Amazing. That's Silver Screen's 100 Sensational Cinemas. Is that right? So everyone should look out for that.
We've dropped the 100 from it now, apparently. It's just Silver Screens.
Oh, right, okay.
Sensational Cinemas from Hollywood to Hong Kong.
So it's all around the world then?
It's all around the world. It's basically amazing cinemas that have amazing stories. And I love going to different cinemas and seeing films in places. I'll always go and see a film when I'm on holiday somewhere to see something in a completely different space than I'm used to. But these are things like, going to a cinema where Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested after the shooting of JFK, or going to the one that Elvis used to go and watch all-nighter movie marathons in, or the one that John Dillinger was shot dead outside of, or it's not all death. That sounds like it's all death. But yeah,
that was 3 on the bounce.
Yeah, I know, but those are the most terrible. The death ones. You don't always get shot when you come out of cinema, so it's all right. But yeah, so all cinemas that have a particular story surrounding them, or a particular interesting aspect to them.
Oh, amazing. And then the other thing you're writing is the draft. You didn't say what novel it was, so you're just being modest probably, but that's Gatsby, isn't it? And it's like a reimagined version of Gatsby.
Yeah, it's a modernised version with a gender flip of Gatsby. So Gatsby is now a female influencer, and Nick is next door, and she gets embroiled in Gatsby's world, and the sort of constantly comparing herself to the next door neighbour. So that's in the works, and that will be out next year.
Same as me. I'm always constantly comparing myself to my next door neighbour, but she's 90 and yeah, just
She's
weird
not having
comparison.
a party every Saturday
Anyway,
night and having champagne
She
fountains
is.
and things.
tea
Have you not,
party. Yeah, tea parties, hardcore.
have you not heard the sirens by Jamie? Every pod episode, there is at least one point where the sirens go by, and it's your neighbour, isn't it, kicking up?
Yeah, she's done it again. Anyway, if you're listening to the show, as always, you can support us, and you can go to moviesinapodshell.sumup store, and you can get one of the My Apps zombie teas for just £18. So if you're like a millionaire, that's essentially free. And you'd be really helping us out. And all we do really is cover the cost of the t-shirt, and we probably have like £1 or £2 spare off the t-shirt. And what we do on that is we just put it back into the podcast for all you guys. So it does really help if you could support us. And it's a really cool t-shirt as well. It's pre-shrunk cotton. It's responsibly sourced. It's not Fruit of the Loom. So come on, give us some money.
I have one of those, and I can
You can also go on
attest to
YouTube
it.
and
There you
Jane
go.
does have one. Yeah, Jane has one, and she can attest to it because she uses it to wipe down her sides after she's cooked a roast dinner.
I don't.
And
I
it's
go
not
to
once
work
torn.
in it.
Ah, okay, brilliant.
I think that's an excellent tea towel. I mean, that's what we're selling.
Well,
Brilliant.
my sister bought one and she goes to bed in it, which is hilarious. But never mind. Anyway, you can also find us on YouTube. We are a video podcast now as well. Just type in Movies in a Pod Shell, all one word. Tony, thank you very much. And you can also go on Spotify and Apple iTunes, and you can rate us 5 stars because we only accept 5 stars. And I think that's it. So usually we just go around the table and talk about what we've been watching. I've mostly just been watching 2024 films, trying to catch up with this. So I'm not really going to talk about much. But Jane, what have you been watching? Anything you can actually talk about?
Well, this morning I went to a sneaky peek of the new Alien Romulus, and saw some footage of that. Saw 12 minutes.
Look at Johnny's buzzing.
Oh my god!
Does it look good?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Anything
I
about it either,
I
which is
can't
hilarious.
say anything about it specifically, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, very
Yeah.
into this.
Okay.
So that was very exciting. And then I followed it up with a film that's out this Friday called Something in the Water, which was very much the opposite.
Right. It was a poo in the water, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know we can't ask, but I've got to ask. You know, with Alien and budget though, is it like a lower budget entry this time? Because like Prometheus was super expensive, wasn't it? And then Covenant kind of had a slightly reduced budget. Is this kind of trying to go in lower to then get a bigger return, or is it quite high production? Do you know?
I mean, I don't think it's as high as it was with Ridley Scott, but they haven't been scrimping on it, so I don't think it's like properly mid-tier. But in terms of the sort of ambition for it, it's by the director of The Evil Dead, and we
watched that.
Faye Alvarez, yes,
And
which is really promising.
Yeah, and he's so good at that sort of genuinely terrifying sort of dread. And his sort of ambition for this is purely to do it from a fanboy point of view. And he's all about taking it back to sort of Alien and Aliens, and not, departing into the later entries. So from that point of view, it's, like physical effects and stuff like that. So,
Brilliant. Standalone story as well, which is exciting.
Yeah, and it's set between sort of Alien and Aliens, so that's interesting in itself. So yeah, I think we can hope for things to be great there.
August release as well.
I know. So
happy birthday to me when that comes out.
Yeah, big tentpole for your birthday, and one that you'll absolutely love, I think. So there we go. That's what I've been doing.
The big boy.
I hope it does well.
Big boy's going to have a great birthday.
I genuinely hope it does well, because I feel like obviously it's the first one since it's not Fox now, right? Isn't it? So it's under Disney, or not, but just kind of since the merger. And it's just, let's be honest, we've had kind of mixed returns on Alien films for such a long time. It'd be so nice to have something
Disney really knows what they're doing with franchises at the moment as well. Like, they really know what they're doing with franchises, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Anything else, Jane, you've been watching? Sarcasm. It was sarcasm. It was sarcasm.
I went to see Inside Out at the weekend, Inside Out 2.
Right.
And I was a little disappointed, I have to say. I love the first one.
I really
don't
like
know how
the
you
first
feel
one.
about the first one. I loved it. And Bing Bong.
Yeah, I really like it.
A huge deal to me, the character of Bing Bong. And I was hoping for some more Bing Bong action, and I was disappointed. There was no Bing Bong.
Well, it's only a PG,
he faded
right?
away though, didn't he? He was like a
Come on, nobody's ever dead. We know this from Marvel. Surely Bing Bong can come back as a dream or something. Just his little, he smells of candy and he weeps candy and he's like half dolphin, half, what is he? An elephant
He's
covered in cotton
great.
candy. I mean, I wanted the Bing Bong action and I got none.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, I wasn't really Inside Out was I thought it was good, but I don't think I was as hot on it as everyone else.
Oh, I loved it. It
I
was
was too
so
busy
good.
being obsessed with Coco. I think that's like
Oh,
for
Coco's
me
marvellous
Disney's
too.
like pinnacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Are you nothing else you want to talk about, Jane, or shall I move it over to John?
Yeah. What have you two been watching? I know, like Jamie's been trying to catch up. What have you been watching, John?
I've got absolutely nothing to report.
No TV.
No, I literally no. So I did 5 days filming last week. So I've just been in bed or on the road. I've literally done nada. So that's really, really exciting for everyone on the pod. And even better when we record our second episode tomorrow and I'll still have nothing to add as well, which is great.
Have you done a
Well,
baby reindeer or anything? Come on.
No, literally in the
I thought you did
evenings.
do Baby Reindeer, John.
I haven't finished it yet. I've watched some of
okay.
it, but I think no, I haven't. I literally haven't even sat watching TV in the evenings. I'm not lying. I've
Do you
literally
like question
done
your commitment
nothing.
to this podcast, John?
Yeah. I'll tell you what's hilarious. Jamie said, we're doing a 2024 review of like what we've seen so far this year of 2024 films. So I wrote a list. And I was like, I think I've seen like 6 films and we've got to do a top 5. I've now established because of Rebel Moon Part 1 and Part 2, that takes me to 8. So
Are we counting them as
good
two?
job.
Are we counting them as one?
Hey, in
I'm just
August, the
kidding.
director's cuts are being released, so another birthday treat for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Jamie, anything apart from your 2024 films?
Yeah, okay, cool. So I did watch for the first time the Florida Project. And we'll talk about another Sean Baker film later when we talk about our most anticipated for 2024. So yeah, Florida Project by Sean Baker. So people might know him from Tangerine and Red Rocket. So Florida Project it's a story of just outside Disneyland. These people live in kind of absolute poverty, really, like and it's about a mum and her young daughter and kind of a slice of life, kind of really realistic, grounded kind of view on how these people live. And it's really he does this quite often. He like follows like working class people, like, a little bit like Andrea Arnold, really, who again we'll talk about later on because another really anticipated 2024 release that she'll be coming out with. But yeah, he manages to do this thing where he'll show someone maybe potentially doing bad things or making lots of bad choices, but never exactly the same as Andrea Arnold, never kind of villainizes them. And so the film kind of really left me quite empty towards the end, and it leaves you with a little bit of like, you're not really sure how to feel about this main character. But yeah, anyway, so I watched that. Really interesting. I loved it. Yeah, it just made me feel a little bit sad. Like another film, actually, we'll talk about today. So how about, you've seen that, Jane, I'm sure?
Yes, definitely. And I love, Willem Dafoe is in it, and he's like one of the few non sort of. I mean, this is peopled by people who are real and not actors, and he's one of the few people who's an actual trained actor. So yeah, I love that he sort of gets stuck into it, and that actually he's surrounded by all these people who are just as beautiful and affecting as he is, with no training. Yeah, and it does leave you feeling a little bit despairing, doesn't it? But then at the same time, there's this community there that even though everyone has it tough, there is this sort of sense of community there. So you kind of take from it what you will, I suppose. You could look at it as a sort of half empty or a half full film, really.
Yeah, it's great. He's so consistent as well, Sean Baker. And a massive film fan, so he's always on Letterboxd, posting the films that he's been watching. And then the only other things I've got to talk about, we could talk briefly about Baby Reindeer without giving any spoilers away, which is probably the best television I've watched this year, bar what I'm currently watching. I'd say it's on par, which is The White Lotus. I've just started The White Lotus, so I'm 3 episodes into that.
What, season
and that's,
1?
Fantastic. Yeah, season one. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't
okay.
really watch much TV, so I'm quite slow on TV because I'm mostly watching films where I can fit them in. So I will usually just watch 1 or 2 seasons at a time,
Yeah.
quite short stuff. So just finished the first season of is it called Big Little Lies with Nicole Kidman,
Yeah.
which was again first season. That's fantastic. It just now TV just have it nailed down. Like it's like
All the best shows on Now TV, I feel
yeah.
like
We've got
90%
called
of the
Now
stuff
TV
I
shills. I'm like, well, but
yeah,
it's quality, isn't it?
and
So
Succession. Yeah.
yeah, so I would say that yeah, Big Little Lies was fantastic, and so is White Lotus, just full of dislikable characters, which I often love, and you just sit there and you're just like, he's such a prick, or she's such a prick, and
The
it's
best
just
thing though with White Lotus is it's the Australian kind of Basil Fawlty, isn't it? Like
oh, brilliant,
the
yeah,
maitre d guy is just brilliant, and just
yeah,
no spoilers, but yeah, just watching his character just slowly lose it is kind of great.
yeah.
So
And Baby Reindeer, obviously, that is probably the show everyone's been talking about. Well, we're a bit late on the train with that, but that was a few months ago, a couple of months ago. I watched that, which
it's
again
a
was really
hard
good.
watch.
It
Hard
is a tough watch, yeah. Left me a
Very
little bit
difficult.
empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
And
real
actually, if
life
you go on
Martha
YouTube,
is apparently suing Netflix for it, so that's one to
yeah,
watch
for
and see how
millions. Yeah, I
that
saw
works
this. I
out.
saw this. She was on Piers Morgan, wasn't she? And it was just in absolutely complete like denial, which and because it might all not be true allegedly, and that's what we have to say things like that. So yeah, but that's all I've been watching really, and then we can kind of talk about some notable mentions and stuff later, which would be on my list, and we've definitely got one on my list that probably a lot of people wouldn't have in their top 5 movies of the year. But remember, these are just favourites. So with that being said, Jane, as our guest, would you like to go? In fact,
Yes.
yeah, would you like to go first
Oh,
with your
yes.
number 5 film of the year? And the rule is,
Yes.
if one of us has one of these films on our list, we will say, yes, that's further up my list. Let's talk about it together afterwards.
Right.
So, Jane, tell us what your number 5.
My number 5 is Robot Dreams. Did you watch it?
Okay. I didn't manage to get around to it in the end, but it's high on my list, and I know that everyone I know that has seen it is gushing about it. So, and not a lot of people know about it. So, can you tell us about it?
So it's an animated film, but it's not designed for kids. It's designed for everybody. But I think probably adults are the people that will get something in their eye the most. But it's about a little lonely. Oh, hang on, is it a dog? I think it's a dog. A little lonely creature in New York that is so bereft of friends that he orders a robot online and gets a robot friend. Um, and then he takes him to the beach at Coney Island, and disaster strikes, and this robot has a sort of existential crisis at the beach. To say more would be to spoil it, but it's so cute. It's so beautifully animated, but the actual story is so it's like everything from the Iron Giant to E.T. to all of those things where the really bonding with somebody from another world or another sort of aspect, and just the absolute joy of friendship. And yeah, it's honestly, it makes me cry to think about it. It was so lovely, and not a lot of people went to see it when it came out of the cinemas. But if you do get an opportunity to see it now, it's streaming. It's an absolute gem, and it'd be one of those ones that you'd watch and think, "Oh, this is like an animated film. It's fine." But like in the same way as Spirited Away is just an animated film, it so isn't. It really packs an emotional punch.
Am I right in thinking it's a silent film? Like,
Pretty
as in when
much.
I say silent, there's obviously there's no dialogue really. Yeah.
No dialogue. No, but there's a lot. It's a lot of great sound design because they live in New York, so all of the sounds of New York are in there. And it's just about, and it's also about the other people that you can relate to, of moving somewhere to a big city and feeling so alone in a place that's so busy and surrounded by people and surrounded by the noise of your neighbors and people on the street, but actually just feeling incredibly lonely within that situation. So yeah, it's one that anyone can identify with, and yeah,
Yeah.
certainly tug at the heartstrings, I think.
Oh, brill. Yeah. So it is on my list. As I say, I had a list of films to watch over the weekend, and I managed a few of them. One of them was majorly disappointing, which I will talk about
Oh.
later. So John, what about your number 5? Which
Oh,
blockbuster have you got on that
what a
list?
switch up! Mean Girls.
Mean Girls, yes.
Oh, yes.
One of them. Did you? So one, I'll be completely honest. I didn't realise there was a musical beforehand, and the trailers did not give away the fact it was a musical. So it was also, yeah, there's kind of a phase at the moment of films that are musicals not in the trailers being presented as musicals. So like Wonka barely had like any of the singing in the trailer, if you noticed. But anyway, maybe it's a new marketing ploy.
I think it's intentional because
so
people think it's so off-putting.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, but then La La Land completely embraced it. Look how well that did. But anyway, that's quite a while
I know,
ago
but
now,
I
I
think
suppose, isn't
don't
it?
you think La La Land sort of was like a stealth one, in as much as people went to see it and they were like,
Well, no.
I don't really like musicals, but I'm all right with this kind of thing. That's what I mean. Like, I feel like marketing wise,
But even the Wicked trailer's not got much.
No, I know, and so I think they
Yeah,
don't
but
want to put you off in case you hate Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because musicals are divisive. Yeah.
well, as we found out, we did a musical episode, not as in we sang the whole time. And we did an episode
That would be so good.
about two
you should do
musicals,
that, though, in
and
the
it
future.
absolutely tanked.
I
Well,
just simply don't have the time to.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mean Girls. Basically, I initially, like Jamie, I was very opposed to the idea of there being a remake of Mean Girls due to the fact that I think, the 2004 version is fantastic. So I didn't really want to see a remake of it. However, Harry and I were like, oh, I really want to go to cinema and see this. Let's go. And it was just really good fun. It had enough nods and enough similar beats, but updated it enough to be relevant. And also, I felt like it did a better job of giving you the perspective of Regina George rather than just being presented as a bitch. It actually tried to give some, like character to her and some understanding of actually it's quite difficult to be her too.
It made her
like,
human, didn't it? A bit more human.
Yeah, rather than just being two-dimensional. So that was good. Why did I enjoy it? I think, well, the stealth musical aspect got me, but just there's some bangers in there. Like Apex Predator is an absolute tune. Millie loves that as well. She's been dancing to that, so that's good. Yeah, don't know. Just enjoyed it. It's a vibe. It was
I enjoyed it as
colourful
well.
and fun, and it didn't outstay its welcome, wasn't it? Only like an hour and 40 minutes or something. It didn't feel that long at the time. So, yeah, bit of fun.
Brill. So yeah, number 5, Mean Girls, eh? What a surprise.
Jamie, what's yours?
So mine was actually a film that I watched yesterday, which had been on my list for quite a while, but my subtitles were not syncing up properly, so it did delay me watching it. But then BFI Player hooked me up, and when I say hooked me up, I paid for a monthly subscription. So that film would be Monster from technically it says 2023 here, but it was out in this country, in the UK, in 2024. So Monster from Hirokazu Koreeda, so you might know him from Shoplifters or Broker. So this is a really interesting film. Has anyone seen it here?
I actually haven't.
No? Okay, well, it is fantastic. So it's basically, it follows a film. Yep, cool, good one. It follows a little boy who he starts to behave quite strangely. He's lost his dad and he's living with his single mother. And so his mum feels like there's something wrong. And we discover that basically the teacher is like abusing Minato, who's the young boy in school. She storms into the school and she kind of demands to know what's going on. And kind of as the story, it's very much like a Rashomon situation where we see the story unfold through the mother's eyes. Then we see the story unfold through the teacher's eyes. And then finally we see the story unfold through the little boy's eyes. And it's really, really clever in how it weaves this story together. And we kind of see, we think something, we get led down the garden path, and then the rug's pulled out from beneath us again and again and again when we see these different perspectives. And this teacher is kind of villainized, and they're demanding him to be fired from the school because he's hitting this young boy. And then as the story progresses, you just see, for example, there's a scene where a little boy, his shoe comes off, and we only see that scene, and then later on in the film we see why the shoe is off, that kind of thing. And it's brilliant, and it's brilliantly edited. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a Japanese film. So I would highly recommend that. That's currently streaming on BFI Player. So Yeah, go for that one.
Will
What
do.
was the Ridley Scott one recently that had the three perspectives?
Yes,
What
that
was that
was
called?
the
Jodie
something
Comer.
Jewel, the last Jewel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the last Jewel. Yeah, that was a Rashomon
So-
style one with what's her name from?
Was it Jodie Comer?
Yes, thanks very
It's
much.
Jodie
Yeah,
Comer
yeah.
and Ben Affleck and
Yeah,
Matt
that
Damon
was it.
and Adam Driver
that's it.
and some horrendous
Yeah.
accents.
No one
Well-
could decide on what to stick with.
So
Yeah.
so there we go. Monster from 2024, Corriada, or 2023, wherever you are. Let's not split hairs. Jane, you must have a number 4 film for us. And
I
what
do,
would that
and
be?
it actually stars Jodie Comer, and it's The End We Start From. Did either of you see this one?
Yes, I did see this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, so this is it's a a near future apocalyptic sort of scenario where the UK suddenly becomes deluged in water, which seems very pertinent for the weather that we're currently having, and the water levels rise and everything floods. We've seen that before on TV and stuff, but what I don't think we've seen that they've done really cleverly here is the perspective of Jodie Comer's character, who is not named. She's just the mother of a newborn baby, and her having to navigate this world with a baby. And it's not really about apocalypse, it's about motherhood. It's about the horror of what happens when you have a child and how your world completely changes and turns upside down, and the protection you have to go through, the tiredness, the anxiety, the fear, all of those things are wrapped up in this beautiful story that's filmed in the UK and all around the UK. Benedict Cumberbatch is a producer on it, and he has a very small role in it. But it's terrifying in as much as the way they portray apocalypse like that is just feels like it definitely would happen that way. It's very much sort of news at 10 saying you must do this, and the army coming in and taking control. It's not sort of heightened, and it's not like a zombie attack. It's just feels very pedestrian. And yeah, I just think Comer's absolutely brilliant. In fact, she's in 2 of my top 5s for this year. She's my actress to go to. I think she's incredible. I loved her in Killing Eve. I'm sure you guys saw her in that. Her range is phenomenal, and she can play anything, I think. And I just think she's incredible in this. And she obviously, she has a prosthetic belly in it at the beginning, and then she has to bond with this baby. She's not a mother herself. I talked to her about this, and she's like, I have no sort of baby knowledge really of my own, but it's so believable that she is the mother of this child, and the performance they get out of the babies they used is lovely as well. And I just think it's sort of something you should make any prospective dad watch before their partner gives birth, because it gives you the real sense of absolute panic.
Anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird you say about Jodie Comer, because I was just looking at what I wrote about The End We Start From when I did watch it back in February. And my opening words were, waiting for an even slightly below par performance from Jodie Comer, but not sure I'll ever get it.
You won't.
And she's unbelievable in everything. But yeah, that's a good film. That is. Yeah, I did enjoy it, and it gives. I always often find these films, like films like it reminded me a little bit of The Road, which was obviously like slightly more bleak. A little bit of The Last of Us, and there is something about, because it's a mother and a daughter, that really does get under your skin when you're watching it. Like you worry so much more for them, whereas I never really worry about men getting beaten up. I don't know why that is, but
I know what you mean.
I'm just like, I don't know, like
Vigo and his beard. So what? But a little baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's always scary. John, then, so number 4 for you. Tell me about it.
From one post-apocalyptic film to another, I mean, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I saw very recently.
Oh, good.
I've only just spoke about, but directed by Wes Ball, Jamie's favourite director, as he directed the Maze Runner film. First one.
Love Maze Runner, underrated, yeah?
No.
Maze Runner Unite.
No. Anyway, weirdly, I just find it really bizarre that the Planet of the Apes films always end up being good, because let's be honest, like in the 70s they started strong and then it kind of went on that trajectory, and then there were like those TV movies and what have you. There's the weird, I actually don't hate the 2001 Tim Burton one. I find it like an interesting what if project, but it's not Tim Burton enough to be a Tim Burton film, if you know what I mean. It doesn't have his signature stamp on it. It's very much, that's the one for the studio, not the one for me kind of vibe. But Mark Wahlberg is the lead, and people weren't keen on that. But I saw it when I was like 10 or 12 and I never minded it. So there we are. But since we've had the Andy Serkis 3, which I thought were all got progressively better as they went on, and then this one kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even really know this was in production. I literally saw a trailer for it about 3 months ago or something, and it was like, oh, and it's out pretty much now. I'm not sure how well it's done at the box office, but they usually do pretty well at the box office, I think, because let's be honest, everyone kind of likes monkeys and apes, so they just like to be able to go and watch them doing like silly things and talking, or like, yeah, it's good fun. But this the most recent one, it definitely has shades of Avatar in terms of like how the clan system works and like how, and the director was very much open to saying he loves the fact that when they film Avatar, it always feels so lived in and the world is real, and they wanted to replicate that. So he's very against like the green screens as much as possible, because obviously you do require them, but those eight movies have done so much on practical locations. And then, but I'll tell you what I find fascinating about it. When you get those performances, yes, when they capture the performance, you kind of get like the skeletal element, but you're not really getting the face. So they have like the GoPro on the face, but I think some people think that it just scans that and it goes in the computer and then you get the monkey. That's not how it works, the ape, sorry. They have to literally, an artist has to interpret the facial performance of the actor, make it relevant to the ape and like change it, then go via reference footage. It's a whole, Andy Serkis was really clear on this. He was like, my performance is an integral part of it, but he was like, the CG artists who do the face especially, it's a huge kind of thing that we just take for granted, and they look so photoreal now, and they've always improved that I don't even think about it anymore, which I think is incredible. The fact you could just watch an entire 2-hour movie about Planet of the Apes and just could be like, oh yeah, just not even consider it. So yeah, it's good. Not much else to say about it really. Good action, good fun, and then it's kind of got that kind of thing that Dune 2 had, with being like, here's how like a religion started and how it could be like misused and control people in negative ways. And I just found that kind of came out of nowhere, so that was good fun. So yeah,
good. I have seen some mixed reviews about that, like mostly from critics though. Mostly from critics, but then the general audience population seemed to love it. So yeah, I've only seen the first 2 of those, and then I didn't see the third one.
That was good.
I think I found them at the time. I found them quite stressful at the time, and they made me really sad because of Caesar, how they treated Caesar. So I think I wasn't running back to it. Whereas now, like, just love a good cry, don't I? So yeah, and I didn't even realize Tim Burton even had a version of Planet of the Apes probably until a few weeks ago. Yeah. I'm not a huge Tim Burton fan. I'll be quite honest. He's quite a one-trick pony for me.
But that film isn't a very Tim Burton-y, as weird as that really sounds. It's a studio film with his name on it. It's my interpretation. But no, I quite like the fact it was showing, because it's where you couldn't make a CG ape then, right? What's interesting is how they did the behind the scenes, how they got the apes to run. So there's like treadmills being pulled along on like cars and stuff, and they have to run the camera by it at a certain speed so they can do it. So some of the practical stuff behind it is actually really cool, but it's one of those films where I'm more interested in how it was achieved rather than the final outcome, if that's a fair thing to say.
Yeah, no problem.
But anyway, sorry, Jamie, your number 4.
My number 4, I'll tell you what, my list is all over the place, and wait till you get to number 2, like everyone, I'm going to lose, I'll lose all credibility, but actually I think I'm going in hard with these highbrow hitters. My number 4 film would be Perfect Days from Wim Wenders, which I saw back in February, which actually not usually the kind of film that I would gravitate to. However, in the cinema specifically, when you can't look away, it's beautiful. Jane, have you seen this?
No.
No,
I'm
good.
doing
This
like
is
a
great.
weird thing, like of not seeing the things that you've been watching. It's weird, but okay.
And
tell me.
Do you know what? I know for a fact. I'll say I know for a fact. You definitely won't have seen my number 2 film either, because it's probably not very good. Anyway, so Perfect Days, Wim Wenders. It's a 2-hour film, and really a 2-hour film about not much. We see Hiroyama, played by Koji Yakusho, and he lives a very simple life. He's a cleaner of some toilets in Tokyo. And what we do is we literally watch him almost scene for scene cleaning these toilets, and we learn so much about him from just cleaning these toilets, and how meticulous he is and how much pride he takes in his work as a cleaner. And he has this helper, and I'm trying to remember it as much as I can. It was February, but he has this helper who's just a bit young and annoying, and doesn't really care about the job, and is always trying to borrow money off Hirayama. And so Hirayama just wants to lead a simple life, you know, and the only things he really truly cares about is the trees and his books and these cassette tapes that he has. And you see him every morning. We kind of live with him for probably 3 mornings, and we watch him follow this exact same routine, and it's just really beautiful. And there is a little bit of heightened tension sort of in probably the second third of the film, where we see a family member enter, and we kind of see that relationship unfold as well, and we find out why he is on his own and he's not with anyone, and it's just really beautiful. Yeah, he's got this passion for photography, and I think it's just, again, another slice of life film, a quiet film that probably just requires a little bit of patience. And so I would recommend those of you who see it, like, just do all you can to take your phone away in another room and just watch it. And this sounds really wanky, but immerse yourself, like allow yourself to be immersed in his world. And for me, I think seeing it in the cinema helped me enjoy that film so much. And so, yeah, that's for me. Really, I walked out and I was like, God, that was fantastic. And I just, the more I thought about it, I dwelled on it for a while, and I loved it. So yeah, so Perfect
It's what
Days
they call
by Wim
slow
Wenders,
cinema,
and that,
isn't it?
It's and I would say it's very slow cinema, and some people, there'll be a lot of people out there, like, I wouldn't recommend this film to watch on a Friday night to my pals. Do you know what I mean? It would be a film that I would recommend to people that I know love film, and it's, again, I'm being really elitist. It's not about that, but you're not going to get this is not going to do the numbers that Bad Boys for Life is doing, you know, like, which is, we'll talk about box office in a minute, which is hilarious. It is a film about a man living his life subtly, and the beauty he gets out of life. And I think I remember at the time, I was looking for what I wrote about it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I remember saying at the time, I think no matter how much, and take this with a grain of salt, if you have loads of money or you have some money, he finds joy. He doesn't have any money really, but he finds joy in these really small things, and these small things that he can afford, and he looks after everything in his house, and he just lives in this 1-bed apartment. And it's kind of nice to just see this man, like, just living life, and he seems really happy, I guess. And it's just nice. So, but yeah, slow cinema is very slow. And it probably doesn't have the gravitas of a 2001, but, you know, it's beautiful to see. So yeah, and that is also streaming on Mubi. So go on Mubi,
Yay.
and go for that. You get a month free as well. Yeah, Jane. So you're going to give us number 3.
Right.
This creaky chair. I'm so sorry.
Challenges. Has anyone got challenges on their list?
It's my number 2.
Okay.
So now we have to leapfrog
You look
that?
so
Talk
excited.
about it though.
Do we
So we
leapfrog
leapfrog
it?
that, and
Okay.
we go to John's number 3. So John.
Not so fitting with Jane's number 3, but fitting with the slow cinema vibe. I actually went for Jonathan Glazer's Zone of Interest, which again was released here in 2024, where in the States it was 2023. Why did I like this film so much? Because, one, I find how they made it such a departure from how films are normally made. So there was a VFX breakdown of this film, and it's not just the obvious, the backdrops in of like putting Auschwitz next door. It was the fact that there were basically like 6 cameras running in a room, and it was kind of like the actors were told to perform like you're in a play, as in they were doing super long takes, and it was just, it gives it this weird Big Brother documentary feel, and it gets across the for lack of a better description, the mundanity of what their lives were, and how to them it's just what's happening in the background just isn't even considered, and you're just watching their day-to-day life.
Remind us what it's about, John.
Say that again, sorry.
Remind us what it's about. Sorry.
So it's about the commander of Auschwitz who lived with his family literally right the other side of the wall, and it's basically slice of pie, a week in the life of showing what's happening. And it's a slow burn film for sure, because there's not particularly any action, there's not a lot of things happening. It's just trying to show you how the scariest part of the evil there is the lack of the fact everyone thinks it's so normal and it's not considered, you know what I mean? That's kind of what's so scary about it. And
it's all in the sound design, isn't it?
The sound design is incredible, but it's a weird one to say like, oh, the performances were great, because you don't even feel like you're watching performances. It's just kind of, and it just blew my mind really. And I remember when we watched it, Jamie, we were saying camera's not really moving much here at all. Like, a lot of it's just static. And then obviously when I found out the way they filmed it, it made sense. There's a very few sequences where the camera's actually moving along.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of in regards to that though. I do think part of that for me, what I got out of that was that you're made to sit and watch this.
Yeah, you're forced.
And you're
this
forced
is what's
to sit
happening.
And watch.
And
yeah, more like a kind of like a voyeur almost, like watching these people live their life like it's normal, you know.
Yeah, and the fact of we know the context of it, even if they're not addressing it.
Yeah, have you seen that, Jane?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously it did very well in the awards season last year. And obviously, and the both the director and the producer sort of talks a lot about how it's a very pertinent film in today's world, that it can't be dismissed as like, oh, this historical document about Auschwitz, that this idea of people visiting just inhumane, horrific sort of things on a section of people is still happening in the world today. And so from that point of view, it's really creepy when you watch it, because you like, how on earth could this have happened again? And I'm fully aware that it does on a daily basis, and how horrendous we are as humans, and how awful we are to each other. And the sound design on it is just amazing, because it's sickening. Whilst they're sort of going on picnics, aren't they, and having like little swims in rivers, and the little kid is, the mother is sort of taking the little child around the garden to sniff the flowers, whilst this sort of mechanical noise, the mechanical noise of killing people by the millions is happening in the background. And also
it's
just the fact that it's actually the truth. I've been to Auschwitz, actually been to it, and that house does stand there with its little garden wall, with the the herb garden just the other side of where people are being burnt, in their hundreds and thousands in crematoriums. So it's the dichotomy of it.
When we covered it on the pod,
craze.
Yes.
Yeah, we covered it on the pod, and I think I told a story, like, much to John's dismay, told a story about a Holocaust denier in real life that I met, that I used to play football with unknowingly, and that was, it's not cool. There are people out there like that are quite open about it, which is bizarre, really. So
and all those people should be made to go to Auschwitz and walk all around the perimeter of both camps that are next door to each other, and then tell me if it didn't happen, because come on, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll make him do some other things as well. Anyway, so I wouldn't say what.
Number 3, James, where are you at?
Right.
Number 3 for me, yes, we're going to talk about some good old-fashioned wrestling. We love wrestling on the pod. Well, I do, John doesn't. And Jane, fan of wrestling, are you?
Is this Iron Fist?
No, it's Iron Claw.
Sorry, Iron Claw. What's
It's
Iron
a
Fist?
terrible Marvel show from like circa.
Iron Fist is a different film from
That could be from my porno collection. I'm not sure. Sorry.
Probably would have shown at the Scala back in the day.
I thought Jamie was going for Roadhouse for a second.
Yeah. Oh, Roadhouse.
The Iron Claw, which
Have you seen the new one? Because Jamie's not happy about it. But
we're not talking. That's not no one's list, please. Is that?
It's on your list right now. This is what you're talking about, isn't it?
No, I'm talking about the Iron Claw. Right, cool. Let's talk about the Iron Claw that released in this country in 2024. So the Iron Claw is a true story, and it's basically it's a true story of the Von Erich brothers, or the Von Erich brothers, who made history in the WWE, in the world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. And we basically follow this family through tragedy after tragedy and small triumphs as well. And we see the way this family kind of, this brotherhood that they have. It's starring Zac Efron, and how their father treats them and how their father gets them to. It's a really good depiction of like toxic masculinity in terms of how he makes them like compete for his love, affection. And affection. And it's again another film that left me. So I think once a year a film will leave me kind of broken, where I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but probably as I hit the age of 30, like I'm just way more in tune with my emotions. So like at the end of this film, I was like trying to hold it all together, and then I'm like, and I just couldn't help myself. So this is it's really just amazing performances, an amazing transformation again by Zac Efron. I wondered, can he get any bigger? The answer's yes. Can he get any more ripped? The answer's yes. And I'm sure, like, he's not on any performance-enhancing drugs whatsoever. Just good nutrition and good exercise, I guess. So yeah, it's a really fantastic film. And immediately, as soon as it finished, after I'd finally stopped crying, I watched one of the actual matches. So like we see like these horrific things happen to each of the brothers, and I watched the match where the famous match where I won't, in fact, I'm not going to spoil it. Something happens in the match, and it's on YouTube to watch actually, so you can go and do that as well. But yeah, that was directed by Sean Durkin, and it was it's not to be missed really. A really fantastic. I don't know if you call it a biography, really, but it's a biopic. Sorry, I don't know if you call it a biopic, but yeah, brilliant. Like, what did you think, Jane? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I did, and I was really surprised that it didn't get more awards traction because I thought it might, and I thought, oh my god, this might be where Zac Efron of High School Musical fame gets an Oscar nomination because I just think he's brilliant in it. But it didn't really grab voters, and I think that's probably because nobody saw it. They didn't manage to get it round the voting bodies, not because it's not worthy, because I do think it's one of those films that in another year would have been on everyone's sort of shortlist.
Like
it's a shame when that happens, really. And I guess it's probably to do with the subject matter as well. Some people probably wouldn't enjoy professional wrestling. Like, see, like I don't know what's not to enjoy, you know, about fictional outcomes of sports entertainment. No?
Don't forget though, Mickey Rourke, the wrestler, did well that year, didn't it?
Yeah, to be fair,
a while ago.
That done really well. Yeah,
2008 maybe ish, something like
2008, John. I don't know if it was 2008, but I'm gonna check you up on that.
Thing. Awards bodies love a return to form of somebody, you know, like a Brendan Fraser or somebody who's gone away and come back. So I feel like the wrestler, although it's great and it's an Aronofsky, and part of that narrative that propelled that was the fact that Mickey Rourke was so good in it, and people were like really pleased to see that he was able to still have his acting chops as well as be kind of a crazy guy with a small dog. So yeah, unfortunately, Iron Claw didn't have one of those.
No small dogs in Iron Claw, no. Anyway, so yeah, Iron Claw, you can that's not streaming anywhere at the moment, but you can rent it somewhere. Yeah, somewhere, or you can just buy it physical media because we're big fans of physical media on this podcast. So now we're going to move on to Jane and John's. Jane's number 3, John's number 2. What's wrong, John?
No, I was just going to say, I think Jane should definitely lead on challenges, as we did a whole 2-hour podcast about challenges previously. So, Jane, let's hear your thoughts on challenges and why you love it. Yeah, we did.
We dissected that bad boy.
Okay, so I love it because I love Luca Guadagnino and I love most of what he does. And I just think he's a filmmaker that really does horny well, and this is a horny film. He also, you know, uses sound design really well, and I love his needle drops in this and the way it's used to really sort of create tension, but also sort of horniness. And I just think it's also amazing that it's like, I really can't be asked for tennis, not interested, but I was really interested in this.
Really?
Also, I love Zendaya. You know, I mean, Dune 2 isn't on here because I thought you nerds would have it. So, but I love her, and I think she's.
Got it.
Oh, okay. I would have put it on there. It's on my.
I've got it.
We're gonna.
No, John's got it. No, it's fine. John's got it.
I've got it.
It's covered. So I felt like I didn't want to tread on the toes of the big Dune fan, but yeah, I think Zendaya is fantastic, and I love the fact that this is her producing this film as well, and this is the sort of material that she wants to.
But it's not the first film she's produced, because she produced Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Oh, I always call it bloody Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's called Malcolm and Marie, for Christ's sake, every time.
Yes, but I'm not counting that because that was Netflix, and this is proper.
Okay. Oh,
I feel like
okay.
like you put your training wheels on for a Netflix producing, and then you go out and do it properly theatrically. And the fact that they yanked it, you know, because it was going to come out at the beginning of the actors' strike, and it was going to be headlining Venice, and she and Guadagnino and everyone else made the decision that no, this is a proper film that isn't going to be just sort of like pushed away, and they redid it, did a re-release in the following year after that in order to really, you know, get people's bums on seats, because she had full faith in the material, and she has, you know, a good sense in that respect, because it's a brilliant
Yeah.
love triangle. And I love the fact that you sort of
Yeah.
waver between each suitor, who's better for her, who is, and actually
On
in the
each
end,
viewing.
neither
Yeah.
of them. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I love the fact that even though none of them are aging, we sense them in different periods of their life with the odd
Yeah.
wig here and there. And that is what people
Yeah.
are like. You are different in, a few years. You're different
Yeah.
when you've had something happen to you and that you feel like you've failed. You're different when you're competing against somebody in the bedroom and on court. And I just think all of those dynamics are really well explored.
Out of curiosity, did you watch Malcolm and Marie, and did you think
I
she
did.
was good in that? Because I thought her performance in that was genuinely very good. Even though it's not, I know why people don't like that film, but I actually quite enjoy it because I love the black and white. I love Marcel Rev, who does the cinematography, and he did
Beautiful.
Euphoria with her. But
Yeah.
I just think it was, and also the fact of like wasn't it the first Hollywood production back in COVID as well, and
Yeah.
all that side to it as well. So
Yeah, and I
But
love
yeah,
John David Washington.
I think
I just think the script was a bit,
energy.
yeah. So, where's he gone? Oh, yeah. No,
Sorry about that.
I
Just
didn't. Go on.
That's all right. Go on.
No, I didn't hate Malcolm and
I wasn't
Marie
gonna
as
say
much as a
anything.
lot
Yeah.
of people did. And I will always. I'm here for watching Zendaya wear the shit out of a ball gown whilst making macaroni cheese. So probably not allowed to say
yeah,
shit,
I loved,
am I?
I loved it as
Shall
well.
I say hell instead?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
fine, that's fine.
We've moved up.
No,
we've moved
that's
up
fine.
now. Yeah, we've moved up. So
It's fine.
we now say shit, piss, ass, dick. But I'm trying to like squeeze an F word in there because once I get that in there, we're fully
over.
there. So yeah, so we can we can say the odd. We'll be like is it a 12 where you're allowed to say one F bomb an episode?
You are. You're
Yeah,
12
there you
there.
go. So
There you
we
go.
should be allowed to do that, John. So let me do, and then I'll use it sparingly.
Let's save it up. Who's
Yeah.
going to say
Anyway.
it?
Well, it won't be John. Brilliant. So that was Jane's number 3, John's number 2,
Yeah.
and so now we're on to
number
this has
2.
got we're on to Jane's number 2,
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Are we?
and then
Oh,
in
yeah.
between everyone's number 1s, I'm going to splice some questions in there. So
Okay.
go for it, Jane. Tell us your number 2.
American Fiction.
Oh yes.
On your list?
Jane
No.
did see.
No, I've seen it, but it's not on my list.
Oh.
Great though, brilliant.
Okay. Yeah, so it's quite pertinent to me in a wanky fashion because it's about publishing, and I'm currently going through that, and so I found it to be quite terrifying. But it's also just an amazingly interesting look at art and America. And it focuses on a man who is a lecturer who is incredibly bright and should be publishing books, but doesn't lean into his blackness enough, according to the publishing industry. So just decides to write this ridiculous book that's called a swear word and is a complete fallacy and an absolutely ridiculous depiction of a black man in America. And it becomes a hit, and the publishers love it, and they just think it's incredible. And he is bewildered by it. At the same time, he's sort of dealing with a family tragedy and the dynamics between his brother, played by Sterling K. Brown, who's brilliant as well. And it's Jeffrey Wright, who, frankly, does he ever do a bum performance? I've never seen him be bad. And he's just serving
No.
this material like an absolute prince. And it's a treat to listen to that melodious voice that he has, just saying some ridiculous things. And to sort of see the side of, publishing and marketing and branding being held up for the fallacy that it is. I loved it.
Yeah, it's like no pun intended, but like it's got a lot of like black humor, isn't it? Like it's very
Yes.
funny. I was laughing throughout, and yeah, it's just it's hard to describe really. Like it's when it sounds obviously like really obvious, but it's just written. There's not a wasted sentence in the whole film. Like you just everything is perfect, and the books that he's writing, he's obviously doing it because he's like hate writing them, like he's doing it to
Yeah.
completely take the piss. And obviously and it reminds me of like, it sounds crazy, like, and not to make this about me, but it's like I want to go on this podcast and talk about Wim Wenders' Perfect Days. I don't want to come on the podcast and talk about Infinity War, like, and that is, but guess what gets way more numbers? It is Infinity War, like, and so there's a very fine line between like selling your soul to the devil and doing that, and it reminds me of I don't know anyone who's listening. Obviously, the band Busted, the front man from Busted. No, it does. Like, it is, of course, it is.
Is Charlie
Simpson from Busted.
Yeah.
Was in a boy band to make loads of money and then quit the boy band to go into a metal band and actually write music that he wanted to write because he had the money and he had the backing and he had all the connections with the record labels to do what he wanted. And that is, for me, like, that's exactly what this is. It's like he's doing it, like, and like when he's like acting like pretending to be like a gangster from prison, and that, it's so funny. Like, he's excellent. Yeah, it's honestly, John, you should watch. That's on Prime, that is. So that's available on Prime to watch.
We were supposed to see that together, weren't we? But I couldn't get a babysitter, if I remember rightly. That was a Mockingbird one. No?
No, it wasn't. It was someone else that reached out to us that probably messed us around about 50 times. So we decided that we've got busy lives and we couldn't do it. So yeah, we had to, sadly. So that didn't get any coverage. So yeah, here we are covering it now. So yeah, no, it's brilliant. But yeah, all of these things, and as I say, movies in a pod show, we're never going to sell ourselves to the devil. We'll always tell you if something's shite, like most Marvel films. What are you going to do about it? Boycott us. So we can't afford to be boycotted, don't we?
I don't know.
What's wrong with me tonight? I'm on
one.
What number's me? Am I on number 2? John, have we done your number 2, which was
Challenges? Yeah, so I've done my number 2, so we're on your number 2. Yeah.
Right. Now, my number 2 is a bit of a random one, but do you know what?
It's not that Winnie the Pooh thing, is it? When he's like a killer.
God, please.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. No, of course, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
It's a film you might not have even heard of. So it's from Adam Ramaya, who did a great film called Dinner in America, and the film is called Snack Shack. Now, have you seen this, Jane?
Yeah.
Yes, Jane. So I feel this film is, when a film is it's written for you or it's made for you and it's something that's like right up your alley. And so I watched Dazed and Confused for the first time probably last month.
What?
And when you're sitting, yeah, exactly, yeah. And do you know what? And I was devastated because Dazed and Confused is a film that I'd give anything to have seen it when I was 15 years old. And so, but when I was 15 years old, I was watching stuff like The Breakfast Club and like those kind of like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, those kind of like films that at the time you feel like they're changing your life. And so I feel like Dazed and Confused would have been that film for me. So I'm sitting there on a Friday night and having a couple of whiskeys and I'm like, right, I've got this Criterion now that it's finally out 4K on Criterion. So I'm going to go for it. Richard Linklater, and I'm watching it and I'm like, this is like, when a film like just really gets you excited, and that's what Dazed and Confused did for me. And so when I was watching Snack Shack, I was like, this is really on that same vibe as like Superbad, but then crossed with Linklater, crossed with Perks of Being a Wallflower. And you could look at it and watch the beginning, maybe like 20 minutes, and be like, oh, some of these jokes are quite cheesy. And it is quite cheesy. And the two leads can be a little bit annoying in places. However, the film is about these two best friends. They're called AJ and Moose, and they basically run the local Pools Snack Shack. But basically, they're these two chances that are constantly like betting and trying to find money, and they're 15 years old, which was one complaint I did have about the film, is that I felt like it would have worked much better if they were 18 maybe or 17, but they felt like a bit too young for what they were doing, and they're basically just going around and like buying up like bags of marbles to like sell to people and that kind of thing, just any way to make money. And it's very like the friendship's very much they're punching each other, very masculine kind of vibe. And they run this Snack Shack, and they've got homebrewed beer basically that goes all wrong, and they get tricked into basically running this Snack Shack. So they meet a girl called Brooke, who is a lifeguard. She's the beauty, the one that one of the guys who's not as cool as his other best friend, who's like a bit more muscular and a bit more forward. He's in love with her, and it's basically just about this love triangle kind of thing. And it does, a lot of people, the complaints people did have is that in the final third, something does happen that's a bit untoward of the vibe of the film. But that bit actually was the kind of the cherry on the cake for me. And I was like, oh my God, like It does. It leaves. It's what me and Jane once we did a episode which was a gut punch movie, and it could be classed as a gut punch movie. So prepare yourself for that.
Yeah.
I was laughing all the way through, and I just loved it, and it was made for me, and that's why it's my number 2. Jane, you've seen it.
Yeah, it's very nostalgic, isn't it? Like you said, sort of like super baddie. It's that sort of. It's the 90s, isn't it? I think.
Summer. So I put immaculate summer nostalgia. That is
it really is, and
exactly
it's like
what it is.
There's no one's got cell phones. It's it's sort of.
I'm so glad you loved it.
It's that sort of, and it's nothing really happens. It's dramas that are just really quite small scale, but they're teen boy dramas, and kisses on front porches and stuff. It's cute, but then, as you say, there is this tragedy that happens that brings all of that into relief and makes them sort of. It's exactly the sort of thing that it's sort of a bit Stand By Me as well, isn't it?
I was going to say it's like that. Yeah.
It's like John Hughes.
Yeah,
John Hughes kind of like that kind of vibe, and Stand By Me and all of those films, and it does give. And so when someone I think someone criticized, they were like, "Oh, you're very generous with your reviews. It's like complete nostalgia bait." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, do you know what? Like maybe Perfect Days and Iron Claw are better films technically, but this for me, when I'm saying the film just worked for me, it's just sometimes films just like are made for you, and that for me was just. It was perfect, and it was exactly what I wanted at the time. John, you must watch. Yeah,
you need a hot
so that's
dog
my number
as well.
2.
You need a hot dog and a beer when you're watching it.
Or you need a glizzy, as the kids say. That's what they're called nowadays. I don't know what I'm doing at 35. Just give me a hot dog. Right, before we hit number 1, then. So we're just going to go for a few questions.
Yep.
This has been a very fun episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So. We've got Kims.horror.escape, writes in and says, is 2024 looking to be a good year for film compared to 2023 and 2019? So I think I often talk about 2019 as like maybe like the best year in recent memory for film, and 2023 was fantastic. And we've had another question in as well, which kind of really ties into it, which would be... let me just see. So what films are you all looking forward to for the rest of 2024? So we can kind of tackle these questions at the same time. So it will kind of build as a picture of what 2024 is going to look like. So how are we feeling about 2024 so far with the quality of films? It's been a pretty decent year, right?
Yeah, I think so. But also, you've got to remember that a lot of those awards films that we think of as last year actually came out at the beginning of this year. So you got things like Your Poor Things, and the Holdovers and other things that, so actually, in a diary fashion, we've had a flipping brilliant beginning to the year, and we've had some interesting films. We've had Dune 2, which I'm mentioning again, but just because it was such a behemoth, and we've got some pretty big bangers coming in for the rest of the year. I mean, we've got Joker 2 coming.
I've got a nice little list here.
Yeah,
I've got a nice little list of some bangers coming in.
Yeah, and you've got things from the festivals. I mean, all the stuff that came out in Cannes, the Francis Ford Coppola Meganopolis. I mean, people are going to lose their minds over that because it's just going to be so divisive. And yeah, people will be shouting "You're a wanker" at each other in the streets, like if you do like it or if you don't. There's
Brilliant.
Lots of sort of interesting kinds of kindness is coming out. The new Yorgos Lanthimos, I flipping hated it, but people absolutely loved it at Cannes. So there's lots of stuff that I think is going to be really good conversation starters.
Yeah, and then it's not even. I've got a couple of other little ones that will hopefully not go under the radar. But you've got Anora from Sean Baker, which I haven't seen yet, which is I've heard that is again fantastic. And again, he has this way of showing people the same as Andrea Arnold, who's coming out with Bird, which again I've not seen these films because they've been in festivals and we just ain't that popular. We've got Hundreds of Beavers, which is have you seen that, Jane? By the way,
I have not.
So that's supposed to be brilliant. You've not, right? Okay, that's not a porno, but that's also coming out in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, Hundreds of Beavers, which is I've heard it's supposed to be really funny, just completely bonkers. I had no idea that there was a Lord of the Rings film coming out at the end of the year.
It's an animated one though, isn't it? Yeah.
Is it right? So that makes a lot of sense. So Kenji Kamiyama, so he he actually did some Ghost in the Shell stuff as well. So that makes
he has
loads
a
of sense.
very distinctive anime style Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Is what's
Right.
coming. And then you've
Yeah.
obviously got they're not, Lord of the Rings isn't the only franchise coming back. You've obviously got the Deadpool and Wolverine situation, which is obviously the Marvel Fox.
Yeah, and I
universe is
don't mind
coming
those
together.
films. I don't mind the Deadpool films. All right.
Yeah, I always have a fun time with them, but I never revisit them. You know what I mean? When I'm at the cinema, I'm laughing with everyone. It's fine, and then afterwards, I've never gone back and watched it on streaming or DVD.
I've watched
or
them all
whatever.
once. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Got Twisters.
Is anyone excited about? I'm not.
I see.
Yeah.
So I didn't put that on my list because I've not
Come
seen
on.
the first Twister. Is it good?
I like the first Twister.
Yeah, first twist is great. What's
like
not
the
to like
first
about
Twister?
a cow whizzing around
It's
in a
90s.
cyclone or whatever it is? But
Yeah.
yeah,
I feel
And
like
this
that's
is-
the whole marketing point of the whole film, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it as good
Pretty
as
much.
Dante's Peak?
Dante's
What?
Peak? What film?
Oh, I've lost you.
Dante's Peak's a banger. Yeah, I've lost you.
There we go.
Let's mark
Say
that
again.
clip. So, have you seen Dante's Peak?
Yeah, of course.
It's a banger. Yeah, exactly.
Pierce Brosnan. Yeah.
So the only other two films that I was looking for, well, no, sorry, we've got four films that I was really looking forward to. So I'm sure you might have seen this, Horizon, an
Yes,
American
I've seen
saga,
that.
which is directed and produced. Yeah, Kevin Costner. Are you allowed to say if it's good?
I am allowed to say if it's good, and it is really good. Do you like Dance with Wolves?
You love Kevin Costner as well, though, don't you?
I love Kevin Costner and I love Dance with Wolves. So this is just absolutely amazing. It's more Costner riding
for it.
around, being stoic on a horse, beautiful
Excellent.
sweeping vistas. You know, the Wild West, taking in all of the different people that were peopling this landscape. It's cracking, and it's a part one. He's planned it for like 4. So
Okay. Wow.
hugely
Kev.
expansive. Come on, Kev.
And do you know what? I should have really had Jane on when I was trying my hardest to defend Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
Oh, absolutely.
because John
Yeah.
was kicking off. Yeah, John hates it.
No, be fair. I wasn't kicking off. I said I watched it at the wrong time, as in I wasn't young enough to really get involved. I found it quite annoying.
Which is a backhanded compliment. I wasn't young. I wasn't young enough to know it was shit yet.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I think I rated it around the same level as the Power Rangers movie now. Anyway,
Exactly. So he kept comparing it to the Power Rangers movie.
Come
and then
on.
I know exactly, and we've got M. Night Shyamalan making a return. Who I do love him. I'll actually love him.
that looks good.
With
The
a film called Trap.
Trap.
yeah, that does look good. Yeah,
The one thing I've realised is over the years is just how good a trailer can look, and I will always point everyone to After Earth, which looked like one of the best
Brilliant
films I've ever seen
trailer.
in my life. Yeah,
and the first Prometheus trailer is like
Do you know
one
what
of the
it's
best
like?
trailers ever made, and
Do you know
made
what-
it feel like it was a proper sequel to Alien. And then
Do you know
obviously,
what this is like?
Yeah.
This trailer business, right? This is like when, and I've got no experience with dating apps, right? But this is like when someone's like puts their profile picture on this dating app, right? And they're like, oh yeah, like probably got John in to do the lighting and whatever, and then turns up to the date and he's like, by the way, I forgot to tell you like about this. Like that's exactly what those trailers are like. They're false and deceitful. I would like to talk about Maxine.
Yes.
okay, yeah,
Maxine, which is the third in the trilogy, sequel to Pearl, and obviously the original film was X, which I'm very excited towards that because I just love the first two, and Gladiator 2.
And so
Gladiator 2.
I was about to say, I feel nervy is the way to describe that one.
Gladiator 2. Gladiator 2
Yeah.
could be like the second coming of Christ or the biggest pile of shite.
The second
It's
coming of Christ.
There's no middle. Well, did he come 2 times already? Third coming.
Christ.
No,
Because-
I just
Sorry, third coming because Roadhouse exists. The first original Roadhouse. So yeah.
Is anyone excited for the second Joker film, which is also
Yes, I
musical?
am.
Which
Yes.
yeah, I'm here for it.
I
And
know about
also,
that. I know about
the
that.
trailer for that, it sounds so like he's going to go into the Willy Wonka Pure Imagination song. Like it
Yeah.
has the first 3 notes of it and then goes
Yep.
down. It's like, oh my god, like this looks cool.
I don't really watch trailers, so I've not seen it. But also,
Sorry, of course you haven't. Yeah.
with the whole Joker situation, I'm happy to watch it and I'm happy to appreciate it as long as it's not like a complete and utter play-by-play rip-off of like Goodfellas, another Scorsese film, because that's what the first one was, pure
But that
rip-off of.
That was knowingly so, do you not think? That was the point.
Because
I thought so.
he had De Niro playing that king of comedy character.
Yeah.
There's I think there's a point where like it becomes like a bit of a joke, really, and it's like by the way, I like the Joker film. I think it's good. We covered it on the pod, and there's a lot of people out there saying like, oh yeah, but the film incites violence and all this kind of thing. It incites like incel behavior, and I'm like, I mean, you could say that about anything really. Like, yeah. So I think that maybe if you're that impressionable, like, just stick to Tintin. You know,
last Hollywoody blockbustery superhero film. But question: isn't it the final Spider-Man animated Sony movie this year? Is that coming out this year, or is that?
I think it is at the
it's
very
supposed
end.
to be.
Okay.
Yeah, how have they done that? Because the second one took many years to make.
Did they make them back to back though, like in part 1, part 2? Do you reckon?
I reckon it's probably AI generated.
I don't think it is.
Also, can I throw
and
the
then can we just go into
the
just
mix
before
as well?
Yes.
How are we feeling about
Aren't
that?
you worried about that?
Yes.
Worried. Yeah. I mean, can I just say, when we watched The Crow, so I had never seen it till we watched on the pod about a year ago, and we watched it in November at like a really miserable evening, and it was just quite harrowing, obviously because of the issues surrounding the production anyway.
Yeah.
But also just the fact the themes are so relevant kind of to what ended up happening. It just felt like almost felt like one of the times you shouldn't really watch. Do you know what I mean? It just feels like
it's a bit naughty.
No, it feels like too close to the actual truth. I know it's not, but it's
like American Beauty, isn't it? All over again, like we just covered last week on the pod. No, it is. It is. No, it literally is though. Like I'm not. I won't say what, but like
awkward is a good summary of that. But
uncomfortable.
Yeah, and but just honestly, like the cinematography of the film, even the score. I listen to I love listening to film scores when I like do work. I put the film score on, and even that was harrowing. I was like, bloody hell, I can't even listen to this without thinking about it all. But his family wanted it to be released. Have they had anything to do with this version, or is it just completely? There's no blessing from the family.
No idea.
I'm guessing.
I don't think so, but Bill Skarsgård is the Crow, and he is someone who is very good at doing unsettling. So, who knows? It may be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of obviously that film has a very cult following, the original, and so I'm sure that it's going to be loved and it's going to be completely hated and cast aside. But
one of the most contrasty films I've ever watched in terms of like black levels and like on the. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's pure, like, those streets feel so vivid and real. It's all wet, rain, dirt, just bleak and...
Yeah.
Mood and vibe. Just, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, can we just talk about quickly then our most disappointing film of the year?
Ooh.
It's probably Inside Out 2 for me, again.
Oof,
I'm still not over Bing Bong.
You had such high hopes, of course. Yeah, no Bing Bong. What's going on?
Rebel Moon Part 2. Did not do what I thought it was going to do. I kind of didn't mind the preamble of Part 1, and I kind of was going for the whole, it's all leading to a big thing, and it's going to justify, and we're going to get explanation, and then it didn't really come, which was quite upsetting, but I'm a sucker. I'll still end up watching these director's cuts. By the way, the director's cuts aren't even labelled the same. He's changed the titles completely.
I hate him at this point. He's doing my head in. He needs to just grow up.
Like, just release the one you want, Zach, and be done with it.
Jay. The only thing I said with this, though, and what annoys me is I'm pretty sure when he went to Netflix, he said, hey, this is what I want to do. And they were like, yeah, great, but you have to release 2 versions. And he's probably a bit like, I don't really want to do that because it's become a bit of a thing that people say I only release a good version when I do a director's cut. But Netflix thinks, hey, double the streams because we get your first film, your second film, and then we get them re-released again. And I stupidly said to Jamie, I was like, oh, well, maybe it's not done that well. And then we saw the numbers for them. And like, Jamie, they were massive, weren't they? They were huge.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? It's funny because that really does bring me on to... It's a nice little segue, actually. It brings me on to when I was talking about... there was a question here. So we've got most disappointing of the year, obviously. So for me, Civil War... For me was I hated it.
I agree with that. Yes, I was disappointed. Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah. At this point now, Alex Garland, Ex Machina for me, like I think is absolutely fantastic. Every other film I've seen of his, I'm just really no, thank you very much.
That's interesting.
And Civil War for me, was obviously it follows war journalists and stuff, and it's obviously a commentary on what might happen if everything does go to shit. But I would love a little bit more elaboration on that. The sound in it was amazing, and Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons were brilliant. But I really couldn't care. I didn't care about any of the characters really. So that was a massive disappointment. And obviously Sasquatch Sunset, which I should have watched Robot Dreams instead of that over the weekend. I watched Sasquatch Sunset because I seen it and it looked really interesting. And that was like an hour and 40 minutes, but could have been a short, like genuinely could have been a short. Yeah. And it's all right for, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, but they really do lean into the fact that there's not much plot and there is a little bit of a commentary on, it's like a documentary like feel. There's a bit of commentary on kind of animals and what humans are doing in terms of like making museums and that kind of thing. But at the same time, like they really just lent into like all the pissing and
it's
sex
quite gross, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite gross, which I know that doesn't bother me. Like, but I felt like it was the reason they've done it was to kind of just add more elements and be like, oh, what they're going to do next? Like,
Babylon?
No, because Babylon's actually legitimately fantastic.
Isn't
it, Jane?
Not.
I'll be honest, I actually quite enjoy Babylon.
I love it so much.
No,
it's like being hit over the head with a hammer. It's got the intro to Moulin Rouge of like, can you withstand this? And then keeps going.
Do you know what? That's one that really surprises me that Jane doesn't like, because I would have had Jane written all over it.
Yeah, first 40 minutes,
it's obviously not.
It's absolutely amazing, and I would agree with that. Like, know, like that Moulin Rouge aspect. But I actually think it then tanks spectacularly, and by the time it's just like this weird mishmash of all of his favourite films, and he's just like throwing everything at the screen. I was just like, enough. And also by the time Margot Robbie is just throwing up prodigiously in houses, I'd had enough.
Yeah.
Well,
fair enough.
And then what brings me on to what we were talking about like budgets and films that more streaming views and stuff was Pat wrote in and says, will the recent downtrend in ticket returns for big budget movies alter how studios will approach funding future projects? Which is a fantastic question, really. And I think it proves at the moment that nothing really is safe. Like Furiosa is a good example that it bombed
after 2 weeks, didn't it?
Yeah, it bombed. Yeah, I say it bombed. It probably did bomb compared to what they thought it was going to do. And what makes me laugh, and what's kind of like quite is that Inside Out 2 will absolutely smash at the box office. Like you just know it will. Garfield, I think Garfield did actually bomb, but it's mostly like most of these like kids films. There was a kids film like not long ago that done really really well, but Furiosa like bombed. You've got Fast and Furious, like every single iteration absolutely kills it, and then you've got Bad Boys for Life, which I think was made for $100 million. It's already made $150 million, and it just makes me laugh. And I was looking at Netflix, and the night that, well, 2 nights after The Hitman came out from Linklater, the number one film, the watched film on Netflix is Under Paris, which is a shark. Ridiculous shark movie, which is fine, like it's fine, but it again brings my feet back on the ground where I'm kind of immersed in the people I talk to love film, and I'm immersed in that kind of like culture, I guess, because it's what I care about. Whereas average Joe would prefer to go and watch a popcorn film like Bad Boys for Life, Furiosa. I don't know. I've got no idea why that didn't do well. Like I've got no idea.
I'll tell you my theory with Furiosa though, and a bit kind of like what happened with Indiana Jones as well. You've got such a massive gap between when the previous film came out and no subsidiary media in between to keep people engaged. So if there's not a Star Wars film out, there's a TV show, or there's an animated piece of content, or there's something, or there's a game, or there's a comic book tie-in. There's something to keep the fan base going. And then with the last Indiana Jones, there was none of that, and people were already soured after the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think it was. And, you know, people were already miffed. And then it was, another 10 plus years for that gap. And then you've got the same again with like Fury Road.
I didn't like it though. It was crap.
Well, look, it was also crap. But I'm just saying you didn't even get that initial audience bump you would have expected for Indiana Jones. Do you know what I mean? You didn't even get those pre-sales you would have thought. But the other thing was, for Furiosa, 2016 was Mad Max Fury Road. So it's like, you know, that's a long chunk of time for people to kind of
And Mad Max isn't a big IP.
No, it's one of those where also
And it's not even called Mad Max.
No,
it's called
Fury
Furiosa,
Road.
which is like, yeah.
Well, sorry, yeah. But Fury Road in itself, I believe, didn't start well at the box office. It got it didn't seem to make the numbers up till a lot later. It was a word of mouth and it caught. But I just think the landscape's changed. 2016 streaming wasn't as big as it is now. I don't know. There's Red Letter Media have just done a whole upload about things that used to be really relevant that now no longer are, and they have got a satirical edge on these things. But they're basically saying like that it starts with just a compilation of across the states, just all these cinemas that are closing because they're just not attracting people in the same way. And how do you change that? I suppose Mr. Sunday Movie talks about the biggest problem you've got now is, do you remember back in the day it was a cinema release and then you had to wait like 12 or 15 months for the DVD or Blu-ray?
Yeah,
There was no.
I remember.
Well, now it's like, it's tanking and it's on Apple Plus in 2 weeks' time, but you have to pay 15 quid, and after 2 weeks, then it's free, or what and then it's just like, well, it devalues the experience. Like, there's no kind of like I'm going to see it, and then I'm going to have to wait a whole year and a half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
I remember when my Matrix Reloaded DVD, I couldn't see it at the cinema. I was desperate for a year and a half to see that film, and then I got the DVD and was losing my mind. And
it's really interesting, actually.
How do you retrain an audience to do that? Well, it's going to cost a load of money, because if you say, right, every person currently thinks, oh, if I miss it, I'll see it on streaming. So how many flops would you have to have in like a 12-month period of being like, well, we're not going to release it to anything for 15 months? You'd have a load of films that are coming out now, and people would presume they could do that and then not know they couldn't. Do you know what I mean? You really need to retrain audiences.
This is why Christopher Nolan is so adamant about his theatrical windows, and why he sort of throws his toys out the pram, and why he left Warner Brothers, because he's absolutely adamant that this theatrical window needs to be a certain number of days for a film to have legs in the cinema. And that is where films are made. They're made for a big screen, and that's where he believes people should see them. And I feel like until people get on Christopher Nolan's, Sony have bought Drafthouse cinemas recently. Last week they bought that. And it's like, so that's to me quite encouraging, because Sony are now saying, admittedly, they don't have a super successful streaming brand like a Paramount Plus or a Disney Plus.
No.
But they've bought the Drafthouse cinemas, and those cinemas were really well known for their sort of creative programming, their ability to sort of attract an entire community of people to the cinema, and their real sort of belief in a cinematic experience being one where you turn off your phone, you have some nice food, and it's a beautiful experience. So it's like, if Sony are interested in that as a proposition, I'm hoping that means that studios are now actually seeing the value in that theatrical experience. And maybe they're thinking, maybe we want to put the genie back in the bottle with the streaming and really go back to this, because that is actually where the money is.
But then hold up. The only thing I'd say to that is, does that mean if Sony owns them, does that mean they keep Craven the Hunter out for like months on end because they own it and they can,
Yeah.
Like, is it just a case of saying, okay, it might not do initially well, but if we leave it in there long enough and we own it, it doesn't matter, right? You just keep it in there.
2030. Like, what do you want to go and see? Like,
it will.
I guess we'll
go
and see Craven the Hunter again.
To see how they manage it, won't it? And what changes they make, or what changes they don't make to what people have come to expect from Drafthouse.
Do you think that we've had a good chat there, and maybe not answered the question, which is hilarious, but I love it. So do we think that the big budget films, do you think studios will approach funding future projects differently because of the downward trend in ticket sales, or do we because obviously it has changed with streaming and stuff, and Netflix essentially, there was talk of Netflix having a cinema at one point and doing that.
They own cinemas already. They own a cinema in New York, and they bought and sort of refurbished the Egyptian cinema in LA. So they actually do have cinemas on either coast.
Right.
So that they
cinemas, actually, I guess.
So they qualify for award season, because obviously streaming films have to have had a theatrical window in order to qualify.
Yeah, I think there will always be big budgets spent on films. I think that something like Bad Boys for Life. So what the one thing I would say is Bad Boys for Life, I reckon, would have had a way bigger budget than 100 million. So 100 million, it's a lot, but it's not loads for a film with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. So I do think that is, but the fact that they've kept it at 100 million has allowed it to make a lot more money. And at the same time, that's why you don't see many horror films that have huge budgets. Like the biggest budget horror films nowadays are, it's got to be stuff from like the likes of Ari Aster, and even Fed Alvarez, who's doing,
just
who's
that's
doing
about Alien.
and also the Evil Dead films. They're like pretty big budget for like horror films, and it's only going to be specific directors like that will get that budget, because, and even they might not make the money back. Like Maxine, we'll see how that does at the box office, but at the end of the day, like it's always about the even the Marvel films aren't really making that much money anymore, but the kids films really are, because if they release them just at the right time, before
6 weeks
before
holiday.
half term, and then as well as that, they've got loads of legs at home as well, because all that happens is, and I think it was Sing 2 that was at home, done so much more money at home than it did streaming, because the kids are just watching it over and over and over again, and whereas adults don't do that because we simply don't have time. Like this was so there we go. So I think are we good for moving on?
Yeah.
We're going to go on to our number ones. Oh, go on, John.
No,
John.
I do still think that the cinema experience currently as well is, in the UK, we have been living a cost of living crisis, and to go to the cinema, Jamie and I went to go see Godzilla Minus One.
Please out them.
So we went to a cinema, and how much was it without the deal?
I'm not going to say the cinema's name, but it rhymes with Schmodian.
Mm-hmm. And how much was it though, Jamie? Remind me, genuinely, we got a coupon. Without the coupon, what was it?
You were late, obviously, because you normally are. I took one for the team. Like, I mean, I took one somewhere quite uncomfortable, actually, because it was £40 for us to go to the cinema. Yeah. So it was $39.98 for us to have tickets. And I was like, John, I have a Cineworld Unlimited pass. I said, I can't do this. Like I said, it's a question of value at this moment in time. Yeah. We managed to find like a coupon online, which is crazy, right? Like, why are we searching for coupons online, like to go to the cinema? And so that's why time and time again I bang on about the Mockingbird in Birmingham, because they're doing on a Friday night, they're doing a secret movie night, and you pay £1 booking fee. They're doing Saturday night late night movie at 10 p.m. for £3, and during the week you can go to the cinema for like, I want to say like $8.95, and they're like a small 2-screen cinema, and it's absolutely fantastic. And yeah, fair enough, like you're not going to get an IMAX screen or like reclining leather seats, but really like £20 to go and watch a film, like give me a break.
And it's that, and that's not even counting for food or anything. I mean, if you just want to go and buy a bottle of water,
no way,
it's like £4 for a drink.
I've got hot dogs everywhere.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just feel like the model's kind of broken all around, which is the distribution. Like, I sound really negative now, but I just think the distribution and the fact that we don't have the weight and the expectation that we go to streaming, and in the cinema experience, they're having to raise costs to keep everything going, but actually it's putting people off even more so, and then people just aren't going. It's just, I find it all very frustrating. But anyway, there we go.
Yeah, and Quentin Tarantino's weighed in on this recently, hasn't he? And sort of said, like, this is a, cinema at its root, when it started, was a working man's pastime. This is what you could go and see. Cinemas often were in the upstairs of a theatre, and if you couldn't afford the theatre, you go and watch the pictures upstairs. And during the Depression, that's when people who had very little money were going to the cinema the most. And we've gone completely away from that working class model, and the fact that this is an art, the seventh art that they call it, that now is being priced out from even, it's another thing that people can't afford, and that has a sort of price point on it. How do you expect to keep the doors open at £20 a ticket? And obviously that cinema chain were doing is they're obviously leaning you into the monthly subscription because the monthly subscription is $17.99. So what you can do is watch unlimited films for $17.99. But the problem with that is that, like, maybe if you want to take your kid, you're not going to get your kid a subscription, because he's like, what you're doing is you're paying £20, like, and so it's just crazy, and they're approaching it wrong. And the one thing that has kind of restored faith a little bit was, and we'll talk about budgets again, is that like you can still like make these small independent pictures for like next to no money, and they're magic, and they're fantastic, and they'll be shown in the Mockingbird. And somewhere like the Mockingbird is never, I pray to God, it never closes down, because they are doing God's work, like showing the films that no one has the balls to show. So anyway,
I've mentioned God so many times on this podcast tonight.
I know. Are you
You
having a
okay?
conversion?
Speaking
Are you okay?
of God,
Having
listen.
a crisis. He thought he'd had the third coming of Christ as well today, which is
Yeah.
God, our
great.
Saviour. No, we're not doing that. No.
So,
we
number ones.
Yeah, should we let Jane unveil her number one last then, because she's the guest? That'd be fun. Nice little.
Big build
Yeah.
up.
Would you like that, Jane?
Go on.
You don't really
Yeah,
care, do you?
why not?
'Cause it's not. Yeah. Is that all right? Yeah. Well, okay. Go. I love your pretend excitement. So John, give us your number one.
Jane's already outed me on this, so it's June Part 2,
Yeah,
directed
go for
by Denis Villeneuve. Look, we all kind of know what it's about. It's basically more of what inspired Star Wars, but it's better and more serious and fun. Well, actually, is it fun or is it
It's
quite
not
bleak?
fun.
I don't know,
No, it's
but I
quite
love
bleak.
it.
Yeah.
How much were you loving Austin Butler with the shaved head and were you loving that?
Who?
I think that was a question for Jane. It wasn't for me.
It was, sorry. You're the Austin Butler fan, right?
I'm a massive fan
How
of
did-
him as Elvis, and this is obviously incredibly different. But I do think,
Very good at it, though.
that he brings that swagger from Elvis and that ability to fill up space in a room to fade. And so, the idea of the showmanship of him, I think, worked really, really well. And and also just the fact that he's not in it very much. It's just a little
But carries the
taste of
weight.
but then there's also so
Yeah.
many delicious moving parts of that film. Zendaya and Rebecca Ferguson, the return of
I love Rebecca Ferguson. I think she's brilliant.
the return of Josh Brolin, like
Love him.
the
Yeah.
Emperor. I mean, everything, and then and Florence Pugh, like bedding down now for a bigger story that she's going to get in the next one. Just a treat, wasn't it? Of a cornucopia of talent.
Just everything. To be honest, actually, my complaint when I did watch it was Christopher Walken took me away for a second because I was like, oh, it's Christopher Walken in space gear. Do you know what I mean? I did kind of have a bit of a
Christopher
disconnect.
Walken
Yeah, it just kind of disconnects me a little bit. However, I thought Chalamet is so good in it. Like, we all know the Muad'Dib speech and all that, and like, it's brilliant. And then I love Javier Bardem just being like, he's so convinced, and how he starts from the end of the first film to where he ends up being. And I know there's many memes about it now, but absolutely love it. Nissan Gaib and all that. But it's so good. But what I was going to say was just the mix of like all the best elements of modern Hollywood filmmaking with old school filmmaking all put together, but also just getting a great talented cast. And also, Denny's just vision. I just love the way he films sci-fi. He has such a great grasp of scale. We've said it a million times, but he films it from the perspective of the people rather than, when you see the first Jurassic Park, it's like, why does Jurassic Park 1 look better than Jurassic World? It's like, because Spielberg knows how to shoot from the perspective and awe of us seeing these creatures for the first time. And that's what Denny does with basically every sequence with the sandworm and what have you. And then other films kind of lose that, and you kind of get the magic CG camera that can go anywhere, and this gets back to no, it has to be where a camera can film it and what have you. So I love Dune 2. We did a whole episode on it, so I won't say any more.
No, I did too, and it would have been in my top 10, top 5 even, but I thought best not to.
You thought I might go.
Should let you have it, John. Yeah.
I let you have it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And June 2 is not my number one either, because I've specifically, and hopefully we haven't got the same number one, Jane, but we might have. So my number one was a 2023 film and it didn't come out here. It came out here at a bit of a stupid time, actually.
I think I know which one.
Well, I would class it as a Christmas film.
Yeah.
So is this your number one, Jane?
It isn't.
Okay, cool, good. So I have gone with The Holdovers, which released in January, really here, which is a bit strange. The Holdovers, I think, again, has that. Well, Alexander Payne is just like the way he writes comedy, the way he can write like this, like, again, black humor and make you feel for the characters and have serious things happen, but somehow make them not feel so serious. But you're like, oh my god, this is happening, and it's strange. Like you see a lot of that in Election, his other film, but yeah. So this film for me, so this is about a teacher who's at a New England prep school, like it's like a boarding school, and he's been made to remain on campus during the Christmas break to look after a small amount of students that have nowhere to go because their very rich families or they just don't want to see them, or XYZ. These are basically the in-betweener kind of kids, like the outcasts maybe. So he forms like a bit of a bond with one of them who's looking after. And the kid is like just all those tropes, like he's a troublemaker, he's really smart. And we've got the head cook in the school, who everyone will know is, well, hopefully they'll know her now, but she's Davine Joy Randolph, who she did win the supporting. No, she didn't. She did. Okay, good. Yeah, Davine Joy Randolph won supporting actress for this. So for me, again, we spoke about like nostalgia earlier. This for me, it really gives you that kind of. For me, it was special. Like it's going to be a modern classic. It's going to be a film that I'll rewatch probably every Christmas. And I think the complexity of the characters, the storytelling will like reap rewards on a rewatch. And I think there's a film like every 10 years or so that will just make you feel a certain way that's just quite hard to describe. And again, I'll talk about films like The Perks of Being a Wallflower that do that for me. Like, I think I described this at the time as, and it doesn't sound wanky if you preface it with this, but it was like quite a like emotionally nostalgic for me. And it felt like a 70s film.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but like that emotional nostalgia it feels right. Like that's what I would say about it. And obviously everyone speaks about Paul Giamatti, and who I was pretty devastated. He didn't win. He didn't win the best. He didn't win Best Actor, did he? Which I was really sad about that. But yeah, I just love it. Like it's again very funny and just not much happens, but it's just about relationships. It's about being human. It's about characters. It's you just spend time with these people, and it's just really interesting with Alexander Payne's writing. So that's my number one of the year so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's an amazing film, and it's sort of the character that Paul Giamatti plays has quite a lot in common with the character he plays in Sideways. That sort of sad sack of a man who, needs to learn something and is taught something by an experience in a sort of period of time. And I love Sideways, and I drink Pinot Noir purely because of that film. I'm that much of a wanker, but. I love what he does in that. So this was just more of the same, just delicious.
Yeah, fun. I've got it on 4K ready to watch. It's very rare for me to do that. So the fact that I watched the film, loved it so much, I went and pre-ordered the 4K of it because I'm like, this is going to be something that I just rewatch over and over again. There's films that like where someone's like, oh, do you want to watch that? And I'm like, I can't really be arsed. Like, so my other half has been asking me to watch Zodiac with her for probably about 2 years.
I love Zodiac.
And it's a film that I love and I think is great, but I just can't be arsed. Now, Dirty Dancing was on TV on Sunday and it didn't get turned off. Like I mistakenly put it on, and I put ITV on, which I never ever do because I don't watch TV. But I was watching the Euros. Guess what was on? It was Dirty Dancing. I'm like, it's not getting turned off then, is it? So there we are.
No,
Jane, so I would love to know your number one.
So my number one features two people we've already talked about who I'm a big fan of, Austin Butler and Jodie Comer, but also bringing back somebody else who I think is amazing as an actor, and we don't see him really flex his acting chops enough, apart from in Venom, Tom Hardy. In Jeff Nichols' The Bike Riders. It is out on the 21st, so I've seen it ahead because it came... This was another one that was going to be released before the actors' strike, and they yanked it because they thought, why would we do that when we've got such amazing actors in it? It's got Michael Shannon in it. It's got Boyd Holbrook. It's got, like these amazing actors playing real character parts in a Jeff Nichols screenplay who, I love Mud and Midnight Special. No, yeah. Is it called Midnight Special? Totally forgotten now.
Midnight Cowboy?
Midnight Special. I'm sure that's Jeff. I'm going to have to look it
know.
up now. I'm now thinking I'm confusing my things. Anyway, and it's basically a film that is based on a book by Danny Lyons, and he was a photographer who took photos of sort of biker gangs in the 60s in Chicago. And Jeff Nichols has made this into a sort of film that is like Goodfellas crossed with The Wild One. So it's got that sort of episodic, that time scale, that sort of grit of Goodfellas and the pizzazz of it and the great soundtrack, combined with just like brilliant Harley Davidson bikes. And there's a love triangle in it between Jodie Comer, where Jodie Comer's sort of like our way into this story. She goes down to this, she's called Kathy. She goes down to this bar and she comes across these bikers and she thinks they're monsters. They're just horrible. They're all like trying to touch her ass in her white jeans. She comes out with handprints all over her bum, but she sees Benny, played by Austin Butler, and she's like, I fancy a bit of that. And Benny is, like this rough sort of rebel boy who is led by Tom Hardy's Jonny, who is like the sort of patriarch of the group. And basically, Kathy and Jonny fight over Benny. Both of them want him. Jonny wants him to lead the gang. Kathy wants him to be a good boyfriend and husband. And Jodie Comer is doing an accent in this that she needs to get awards for. She's doing a Chicago accent that you've never heard before. It's so specific and singular. She's so brilliant. I feel like this is the best performance that Tom Hardy's done since Outlaws. Michael Shannon's amazing in it. Norman Reedus is amazing in it. The bikes are amazing. I mean, I just think it's so cool. It's a really cool film. And it's one of those films that we're talking about. It's a mid-tier film. Will it make money? Will people go to the cinema to see this? Does it have enough of a pull to get bums on seats? And it really is a sort of testing ground. So I'm really interested to see how it does and what the response is to it.
Yeah.
There's a massive marketing push for it at the moment, linked with the Euros, believe it or not. So on TalkSport, they're like, "Hey, be part of the team, like Austin Butler and Tom Hardy in." So it's interesting. They're obviously going for it. In fact,
so it's got a $40 million budget. So you'd hope that it makes its money back.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I didn't realize. So I thought this was quite a small independent film. But the cast is crazy. Like Norman Reedus as well. Like, I don't know if you... the cast is crazy. I didn't realise it had Tom Hardy or Michael Shannon. Like, it's... Oh, how exciting is that? It sounds right up my street anyway. It sounds like something I would definitely love. So I'm very
curious,
excited.
Jim, you said about Tom Hardy and acting in Venom. Do you think he has loads to do in the Venom films then? Is that... Or is that not what you meant?
No, she said Outlaw. The film Outlaw.
No, before that, you said about in Venom. What were you referencing? The fact he has to do...
I don't think that. I mean, I think he's a great actor, and I just don't think Venom uses him to his best abilities. And I feel like I feel like he's been waiting for a role like this to come along to just remind people of just how good he is.
Like Bronson or what have you beforehand. And,
he's so visceral and muscular and sort of aggressive, and in this he's also very soft as well with that, and yeah, I just think he's really, really good. And when I saw it, I thought, why don't I see Tom Hardy do more? Why don't I see more of this? And why don't I see more films like this that are a beautiful script, that are sort of the sort of thing that it's sort of, I think it would sit well in that Leftovers thing. You could imagine that this was a film that was made in the 70s. It's just that sort of feel and vibe. So yeah.
I'd be sad to tell you. I'm just having a look now. So obviously you mentioned it comes out on the 21st, and it has 2 showings in the biggest multiplex near me.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. And this is the problem with when films come out, like it'll just get swallowed. What did I mention about The Last Action Hero on the episode that we did of The Last Action Hero, which was ages ago? That film is, people weren't ready for it and they just didn't get it. And the problem with that film is that it came out on the same weekend as Jurassic Park. So see you later. And that's just bad. That's silly thing to do.
Out of curiosity, what is on all the screens in the multiplex now?
It will be Inside Out 2, yeah. It'll be Inside Out 2. Okay. And it will be, what's the other big one that's on at the moment? A bit of Furiosa, probably, trying to recoup that. But it'll be mostly Inside Out 2. That'll be
Fun.
Swallowing it all up. But yeah, I mean, not that that's a problem. Like it is what it is. So yeah, well, and John, we've done your number one. We've done everyone's number one. Brilliant. There you go. You've got 14 brand new films, or maybe some films that you can now watch. And the reason why I always said we did this podcast was to introduce people to new films. So that's brilliant. And so fingers crossed.
But that's why I chose one that you can go and see.
Shack.
You see.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
And
It's
do you
cool.
know what? I'm actually really grateful that you agreed to come on, Jane, because I knew that you would have a bit more of an eclectic list than me and John, because
It's,
yeah,
it's
I sometimes I get to watch films that aren't out yet. Um, but not that many. So yeah, so it's good. And I'm glad I had a couple on my list that you haven't seen yet, Jane, which is good.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
because I don't love a
Um
slow cinema, so you're on your own there, mate.
oh, you don't?
yeah.
Ah, that's okay. That is sad.
I
Right.
have one question about Tom Hardy. I used to love the idea back in the day of him being Bond. Is that ship sailed? Do you reckon? Is he too
Totally
old to do it now?
sailed. I think it has, yeah. I don't think that Barbara Broccoli is looking at anyone that anyone is currently talking about.
Yeah. No, nor do I. I think it's going to be someone under the
Yeah,
radar. Yeah, someone a bit under
I'm
the radar.
really hoping they're going for a period piece as well. I really want them to go like the books go from like 1950s onwards, and because I think the Craig ones were so successful and so in the public consciousness, you have to kind of be like, how can we reinvent this so people don't just immediately compare it to Craig? Yes, you leave a gap of time, but can we go a bit like X-Men First Class, but that kind of like that had the 60s vibe and it had like a really cool. But I don't know if that's super expensive to do. It probably is. So I don't know. We'll see.
And you
They
want to
might
make
not
sure
work
it
as well with the
doesn't
product
veer
placement
into
because
Austin Powers territory, don't you?
that. But I was going to say so much of the previous two films where product placement finances quite a lot of it, so it probably messed that up actually. So you can't really get the watch deals and car deals in otherwise, I suppose. But anyway, we'll see.
Vintage Amigas
Well, look,
instead.
that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah.
vintage. Get the vintage Amigas on the go. So I think, I mean, the only other question we have really that I'd quickly finish with would be the best. And it's a bit of a sad question, really. Best horror of the year so far, which is from quite an avid horror fan that listens to the pod. I don't think I think it's been a pretty naff year for horror so far.
We saw
So I
Immaculate,
have.
didn't we?
We saw what?
Immaculate.
Yeah, we saw Immaculate. So Immaculate was on my list, but I still think it's a 7 out of 10. I've got three on my list that I think were better than Immaculate. So I did have the First Omen on the list. Again, I think I mentioned last pod that I'd rather watch Immaculate than First Omen because First Omen just is a particular type of film. Late Night with the Devil, which is obviously a mockumentary kind of like Ghost Watch UK sort of British kind of thing. And then my favourite horror of the year by far would be Abigail. I think Abigail was
I
so
want to
much
see
fun.
that.
So
Yeah,
much fun.
yeah.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it at Christmas.
Cool.
We're not going to do it at Christmas. We're going to do it at Halloween,
Halloween.
John.
Cool.
Good horror
Yeah,
comedy
I'm
from the
game for
same
that.
writers and directors as Ready or Not. What about Jane? Have you got any horrors that you loved this year?
I mean, like you, I don't think there's been anything that's really knocked me sideways, but maybe they're all incoming. Maybe, we've still got October to get
They've got to
to.
be. Yeah,
But
exactly.
I thought Immaculate was pretty good in sort of basically being an anti-abortionist drama. And
Yeah.
no, sorry, a pro-choice, not anti-abortionist, anti people that are anti-abortionist. It was pro-choice. It was
Yeah.
like about women controlling their own bodies and getting things out of them that they really didn't want in them.
Yeah.
And so
Can-
from that point of view, I thought it
Can I
was
quiz you
quite
on
interesting.
something?
Yeah.
With Immaculate, so skip ahead, let's say 60 seconds if you don't want to know anything about the ending of Immaculate. With Immaculate at the end, what did you think it was? What was birthed? What were you going for?
I don't know, but I like the fact that you didn't see it and you just heard it squished.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that really horrible breathing it did,
Yeah.
and just like Jamie and I were
Yeah.
debating if it was it Devil Incarnate or not,
I think
John, whatever you're flicking
think-
is quite loud.
Or it's my screen, sorry. Sorry,
Sorry.
Joe, what did you think?
Right, stop flicking. Right. Yeah, no, I thought it was a snuffling little devilly piggy horrible thing and something blobby and
That's what I thought.
easily squashable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I
Well,
was just curious.
that's a good 2 hours. And if we didn't, thank you everyone for writing in. I really
Yes.
appreciate it. If we didn't get to your question, then it'll be on the list for next time maybe because we still had a few more. But here we are. We're in a world where I go on holiday in 48 hours, and
Lucky you.
this is what you get. So we're also in a world where Jane has donated her time very, very nice of her and generous of her yet again. So I do want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, yeah.
I always have so much fun when you're on. It's just such a good laugh.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I like having a chat.
Well, you're always welcome on. So whenever we're doing something that you fancy talking about, then you're more than welcome to come on.
When you're doing the greatest Costner films, I'm here for it.
I know. I really should have got you on to back me up with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Round 2.
Absolutely fantastic. Our next episode. So this is weird because we're recording this episode actually before the previous episode that you'll have heard. I don't know if that makes sense.
Time travel thing.
Yeah. The previous episode was Batman Begins and Superman 1978, which we haven't recorded yet, which we're recording tomorrow because I'm going on holiday. However, the episode after this episode that you will hear, John, I'm really sorry to say, right, but it's the 50th anniversary. It's the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's okay.
It's just come out in 4K, and so that's the film that I want to do, and we should watch it together, and then we're going to pair it because we're going to do a 70s horror theme, and we're going to pair it, and you can choose. In fact, this will be better. Let Jane choose because Jane's a guest. So Jane, you get to choose the film that is paired with. And the two films that it's paired with, I don't know if you've seen both of them, but one is The Changeling. Yes. And the other is Don't Look Now.
Oh, Don't Look Now. It's got to be.
Yep. Okay, John, there you go. So it's going to be Don't Look Now, and it's going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre for episode 79 of the Movies in a Podshow podcast. As always, you can find us on Spotify, find us on Apple. Please, it would really do us a massive favor just rating us 5 stars. Go on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. Movies in a Podshow, all one word. Thanks, Tony. Jane, where can they find you?
Oh, I've lost you. Hello.
Oh, we went completely blank there. So I'm gonna you froze for ages. So I just like so we'll go again.
Have you done it?
No, it's not your fault. Right. So we'll go again. Yeah, we'll cut it out. Let's go again. Jane, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter still, or X. I refuse to call it that, and I'm also on Instagram. Do you want my handles?
Brilliant. And
I don't know what they are.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Jane doesn't care. But what you can do is Hollywood Authentic. Go and check that out. And you can wait patiently for the 2 books that Jane's writing. And that's it. Can they find you anywhere else? Are you podcasting anywhere else lately?
No, just with you guys at the moment.
Ah, that's brilliant. So
exclusive content.
John, where are they going to find the best videographer in the UK?
Wow.
Well, not on this page, but at jcb.video.
Yeah. Where will they find you, mate?
At jcb.video on Instagram.
Lovely. And now it's time for everyone to say goodbye, and we just do it quite abruptly. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.